Hi, welcome back to class. And this week we are moving on to Module 2. And I'm using a screencast this week for our class. This is how I do most of my videos for my online classes. This way I can go through and tell you what I would like you to do. So we're in Module 2. Last week we had Module 1, and so by now you should have your textbook. And it's important you have it because for this class we do have open book quizzes every single week. So for most weeks you will have a quiz, and to get an A on the quiz, I really you will need the book for that. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to move on through our introduction to this topic of race and ethnic relations. And I know most of you have had numerous other sociology classes that have touched on this, but this class will be focusing on race and ethnicity. And to do this, one thing that I always do is I start off with a discussion of place, and then I start off with a discussion of whiteness. And so we discuss this idea of what it is to be white, because as you watch other videos in the class, this word will come up quite a bit. And it's something I want you to start getting used to having in your vocabulary, understanding what people are talking about. With regards to sociology, white is much more than just a skin tone. So it gets to a little deeper meaning than this. An example would be for various ethnic groups who came from Southern Europe in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, like Italian Americans, and even Jewish people who came from Eastern Europe. They were often viewed as not being white when they came to America, and so there was policies put in place to discriminate against them. And so if you look at things like higher education, there were admissions requirements in schools that often were designed to weed out Jewish American students from entering into Ivy League schools, which led to schools adopting a holistic admissions process, which is still used today, but initially it was done to really stop people from getting into schools who were from Eastern Europe. Italian Americans faced similar rhetoric to what you hear now with towards Hispanics, and as time progressed, those two groups have moved into being seen in most communities as being white people or being white, and so it's a fluid term. So as we go through the class, you will learn more about that. We will get into different groups of people, including white ethnic groups later on, and so this is something I want you to be comfortable speaking about. And so to do that, you'll probably have to get a little uncomfortable first and have some discussions on this. So what we're going to do this week, I want you to go back and start responding to your Module 1 discussion threads. This is the first thing we'll do. I will show you where to find those. Then make sure you read Chapter 1. Read the book before you start taking the test. If you just flip around trying to take the test, you'll find it's hard to answer some of the questions. If you take your time and read it first, you will find that some of these answers will be very easy to answer. There's a documentary we're going to watch called White Like Me, and there's a Dropbox assignment attached to that. And then there's another video called Race, the Power of an Illusion, which looks at more of the social policies and how those help shape certain neighborhoods and cities in this country through policy, and also how policy unfairly advantaged white people over minorities. And so that will get into some information there. If you had social policy before, it's something that you'll find very interesting. If not, it'll be a intro for policy discussions for you. We do speak a lot of policy in this class. Then there's a Chapter 1 quiz, and then there's a Dropbox that will be due looking at the idea of place, and that won't be due for a couple of weeks, but I have due dates and everything. So as we move through the module, we can see what we have due here. This video will be right here, and then you'll see your assignment sheet. Here's a PowerPoint for the chapter. I'm not going to go through and read the PowerPoint for you. Each week, I do expect you to actually read the book. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me, but the book is very well written. Here's a documentary, White Like Me. This is a little over an hour long, so make sure you have time set aside to watch it. And you can watch it with your Dropbox open and answer questions. I'm just looking for short answers, 1 paragraph maximum on each of these. So there's 10 questions. Then we're going to have our discussion 2. So as you're back answering your module 1 questions, you're going to put an initial post for discussion 2. And so there's 2 questions on this. Make sure you have an answer for each of those so you can actually read your classmates' responses. And again, you're not going to respond to these until next week. As we go through this class, you'll see that I piggyback the chapters so they end up blending together, and we have a fluid discussion throughout the semester. Your Chapter 1 quiz is found here. It's 25 questions. Please make sure you have ample time set up to take the quiz. Don't try to rush through it last minute. If you give yourself proper time, you can take all the time you need to answer the questions. The main idea is I want you to understand and learn this information from the chapter. Once you get done with that, you have everything done for the week, basically, and then there's a Dropbox that will be due in 2 weeks. It's a 1.5 page reflection on the concept of place. And you could use information we already had from the prior week and this week, but I want you to build on C. Wright Mills's view of the sociological imagination, which is the intersection of biography and history. Many social scientists believe that's great, but we also have to add geography into the discussion. As you've seen from the last week's discussion when we discussed neighborhoods or cities in different places, if you compare a Whitetopia to Honolulu, you have 2 different experiences for people based on race. And you can't have a real good discussion about race without narrowing it down to location. Some things are similar between areas in this country. However, when you're discussing race or most other sociological concepts, it is important to also discuss where these take place. That way you can have better context. So if you're discussing an interracial couple in Spearfish, South Dakota, they have a different experience than one in Honolulu, or New York City, or Los Angeles. And so it has a place here. So I want you to write about that. And then I found an interesting site last year that we use for this discussion sometimes. It's a census site, and as you can see right now, there's no updates happening for it, but you can still type in information from a zip code. Let's type in Spearfish, and we can get some information and demographics of our town when we're writing about place. So you don't have to write about your particular town you live in, but you can go to the census and you can, I clicked on the wrong one here. You can go and look at racial characteristics of the town and have a bigger discussion that way. You don't have to do that, but it's just a fun site that some people liked having in the class in the past. So that will be a Dropbox, like I said, that will be due in 2 weeks. Our discussions, every week you can go to your discussion by clicking on the tab here. This will actually bring it to the video because I don't have it live yet. But you can go to the discussion, click on the assignment. When you do it in your view, because I have it set up for the professor's view, I get a little differently. So you can go through our module, or you can go to Discuss tab, and here you'll see the questions for this week. So this week we'll be looking at people mistakenly believe that segregation is a natural process. I want you to discuss how segregation was encouraged and designed by American policy. I'm looking for 125 words minimum for your initial post. That's only about a quarter of a page. And next is another topic from the videos, and it's discussing the idea of color blindness and how that discussion does a disservice for discussing equality. And in a Discuss tab, you can also go to last week's discussion, where you could be clicking on. You can click on here and you can read people's posts and go ahead and respond. Like I said, each week I want you to have 3 responses minimum per topic. So last week we had 2 topics, which you'd have to post to each one of those to read the discussion. So you have your initial post. I want you to do 3 responses to other people's posts on 3 different days. And the reason I have it set up that way is so that if somebody responds to your post, so you respond to somebody, then they respond to you the following day or the same day, you have a chance to respond to them and have an actual discussion. 3 is the minimum expectation. I do hope to see people have a lot more than that. Most semesters, I have a lot of students who do 10, 12 posts per week. So it's really designed to get you to talk more, hopefully. But if anyone has any questions, make sure you send me an email. I'm always available on D2L, so send me an email on D2L, and you can actually communicate with anybody in the class by going to the class list and finding. Let's see where I am. You find the email, and then you send an email to me that way. Alright, so if you have any questions, make sure you get a hold of me. I try to respond to everything within 24 hours. Most likely it'll be a lot faster than that. And thank you, and have a great week.